Welcome into the Nashville Game Changers podcast. I'm your host, Jill Jelnick. Really excited about our guest this week because he's easily one of the most well-known Tennessee Titans in franchise history. I'm talking about Music City Miracle. I'm talking about 1 yard short, Super Bowl 34. And I'm also talking about being a high school principal here in Nashville. Either way you know him, he's a big deal. Please welcome Dr. Kevin Dyson to the show. Thank you so much for joining us. How was that intro?
That's good. That's what I said. I'm going to start taking on some of my speaking engagements.
Okay. He set you up, right? Because you're also, on top of that, aren't you also a keynote speaker?
I have been doing that a little bit more and more. It's been fun. It's interesting to share your story, as we'll do that here today, but outwardly like that and publicly, and then the questions that come about it. So it's been a fun little journey to post-football.
Well, I'm excited to talk about your journey today. Yeah. So much to get into. And how about, starting with what a big year it's been for you. You came out with your own book, Qualified, So I'm Justified, from the playing field to high school principal. Yeah. We'll talk about that. Also, you're going to be starting a new charter school in Metro Nashville. We have to get into that.
Yeah.
But how about we start with the 25th anniversary of the Tennessee Titans Super Bowl team. That team, you played a big role on that. Not only were you on that team, helped them get all the way to the big game, but you are responsible for not one, but two iconic Titans plays. I would love it. We had Derek Mason.
Yeah, D-Mace.
D-Mace. D-Mace was one of our first podcast guests. Yeah. He talked about the Music City Miracle, and he, correct me if I'm wrong, Kevin, but he said that it wasn't what happened was not really what was supposed to happen. Yeah. I would love to hear your perspective on that play, and then also 1 yard short.
First, the fact that it's been 25 years is crazy to me. It's crazy to think about. It was 25 years ago, man. Young 24, 25-year-old kid out there just trying to make a play. But D-Mace is right. So we pretty much were leading the whole game, and then when they got that last touchdown there at the end with 16 seconds left, Allen Lowry and Jeff Fisher come looking for me. And in my head, I'm like, they just took the lead. Usually, only time they call me for special teams is if we're doing hands team and we're trying to preserve the lead, but they just took it from us. So we're in the huddle, on the sideline, huddling up, talking about what we're going to do offensively when we get the ball back after the kickoff. And then Jeff and Allen come get me, and they start talking about home run throwback. Hey, we're going to run home run throwback. Mace is out, Dorsett's out. And the irony of both of them gentlemen being out is Mace went out with a concussion, I believe, from, I think, a punt return or something to that effect.
Yeah.
And when that was happening, I had went into the locker room to get intravenous fluids because I was cramping up in the third quarter. And lo and behold, his backup, Anthony Dorsett Jr., was cramping up late in the game and couldn't run.
Oh my gosh.
It was just like the irony and the coincidences of that happening was just laid out. Like it was supposed to happen for me for whatever reason. And like I said, got IV, it came out so I can finish the game. And they were trying to explain the play to me. And, I had the gist of it. We seen it in practice, but like most of us that weren't involved, we were 1 foot in the locker room, 1 foot in the practice field. We were ready to go. And but they explained it, and how they explained it was obviously they're going to play for a low squib ball on the ground. Frank's going to get it. He's going to try to attract as much of the defense as he can, lateral the ball to the number one return man, which would have been Derek Mason had he been in, and the number two was Isaac Bird. Well, Isaac Bird moved over to the number one spot and moved me to the number two spot for the reasons I just mentioned. And so he was supposed to catch the lateral. Well, when they bloop kicked it, and I've 25 years, I've never asked why, but he came up to field it because it was a bloop. So I think maybe when they blooped it, instead of squibbing it on the ground, I think a lot of people just, or maybe he thought, I shouldn't say a lot of people, maybe he thought, abort, just catch it, get what you can get.
Right.
Well, it put him out of position, and so it left me there standing. So the gist of the play was Frank gets it, laterals to Isaac Bird. I get behind him, he runs, he gets in trouble, he pitches to me, I get what I can, get out of bounds, whatever. Well, he got out of position, Frank reels off, I'm standing there, I step back, catch the ball, and I did what rest is history.
Rest is
the
history.
Easy part. I had the easy part. I can catch and run. I can catch and run. That was the easy part.
I don't know. What was going through your mind as you were running down the field to the end zone?
Truth be told, not a whole lot. Because usually you're an athlete, so you get it. If you're thinking, you're reacting, not being proactive. Because if I'm thinking too much, then I'm going to make mistakes. I'm trying to put the ball here, do this, that, and so it wasn't a whole lot of thought process. But there was a brief moment in there where I was like, okay, when do I get out of bounds? Because that was ingrained in my head was get out of bounds, kick the field goal, we win the game, right?
Right.
And so I was waiting on the moment. Okay, when do I get out of bounds? Make sure I don't fumble with all that stuff. And when Doug Christie went down, because he was the last man in a white uniform standing, I was like, oh, I'm about to score. So I just kept running. You see me as I get through the end zone and I dart to the other side. And that was kind of my way of putting it back in the Buffalo's face because they were taunting our fans.
Oh, man. I bet that felt so good.
Man, it felt good.
That felt so good.
Oh, it did. I ain't gonna lie. I'm usually not like that, but that case I was.
That was a little different. That was a little different.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Do you, I imagine there's people that recognize you and they go right to that play and they go, Kevin Dyson, Music City Miracle. Yeah, like you are the guy from, I mean, numerous Titans played a role in that, but you scored that touchdown.
And it's interesting because when people recognize the name and they look at me and they frown up, like, is that the same guy? Gray now. A lot different looking than him now. But and then the stories are fun to hear. Usually I would ask, but I say usually, the first thing I asked was, were you there? Did you leave early? Or, how did you watch it, witness it?
Oh, right. Fans watching that. Yeah.
And I've heard so many fabulous stories, man. It's been interesting to be a part of people's lives for 25 years and have a legacy that has stood the test of time, so to speak, because there's a lot of players that have come and gone through the National Football League that nobody even knows that helped teams win Super Bowls. They've been Pro Bowlers. They've done some phenomenal things in that league, and it's a short period of opportunity, and people don't remember their contributions. And so to be able to have something that people still talk about 25 years later, have an opportunity to share, man, it's humbling, but it's fun because I've met a lot of people. I've heard a lot of different stories, and it's been fun just hearing the stories.
I bet.
I actually want to put a book together just of people's stories.
Yeah, fan stories. Stories. I would hate to hear about the fan that left early from that game.
I've heard a couple. I heard a couple that were stuck in the elevator and everything.
I would change my memory and just say, yeah, I was there. I watched it. It was great.
I met a fan who left early to Music City Miracle. They left early on the Vince Young comeback, Monday Night Football comeback, and I think there was another one. There was three. I think the Bronis 60-yard field goal one. I think there was like three iconic moments in that stadium. They left early on, and I met that person, and they were just like, and now they won't ever leave early again.
Yeah. They need to be in your book. This new book. If you do that new book, for sure.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong. That year, there was also no week off between the conference championship and the Super Bowl. So it was only, technically 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later was Super Bowl 34.
Yeah, it was January 6th.
Yeah.
And then Super Bowl was January 31st. So, yeah.
And that was the last year they had no week off in between. How weird was that?
Well, again, you're an athlete, so you probably have some superstitions of yourself.
Oh, yeah.
I had some too, and I'm sure most of us did. And you don't like to count your eggs before they hatch. And so having to prepare as though you're going to the Super Bowl, we packed separate bags. You packed your bag for going to Jacksonville for the championship game. Oh,
really?
And you had to be prepared and be packed and ready to go for the most part because we played on Sunday. I think the conference championship game was on Sunday, and we were flying to Atlanta Monday, like that next morning. Like, it was no rest for the weary. So it was pretty much packing for both trips. We had to get planes situated for our families, hotels for our families, like
just in case before you had advanced to the Super Bowl. Yeah, as a former athlete, I'd be knocking on wood. I'd be like doing some voodoo stuff. Like, I don't like this.
I don't like it. And it's crazy because you calling your folks like on Monday morning. We're getting to Atlanta, to celebrating you. The everybody's out there celebrating you, and you're trying to have some kind of normalcy.
Yeah.
But at the same time, your mind is like, okay, I gotta get my mom here, my brother's here, my sister. It's like, you're thinking about all the administrative stuff that has nothing to do with the game, but then you got to focus on the game.
Yeah.
And so I get why they have moved it, have a week in between. There's a build up. They can do some things in between time, like the Pro Bowl or the whatever they call that now, and some things of that nature. But I'm glad they switched it because that was rough. That was hard. That was hard.
Yeah.
But it kind of bounces the playing field depending on what time you play. I think we had the mid-afternoon game that day.
Yeah.
So the time to prepare was about the same for everybody else. And
Makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense. But, I'm glad they switched it, though.
You're listening to the Nashville Game Changers podcast with Dr. Kevin Dyson. Stay with us. We'll be right back after this. And circling back to Super Bowl 34, that big game, obviously the ending is probably what sticks out to you the most. But what do you remember leading up to that final play of the game?
I'll go back to the beginning of the drive. I tell people this story for 25 years now, but when you're just in that hole, you're in that sense, there was no sense of doubt. There was a sense of urgency. But I don't think anybody doubted we were going to go 89 yards and tie that game. I think Jeff has said he would have kicked the extra point and gone overtime. But there was no doubt. I don't think anybody in the huddle thought it would end the way it ended. I thought because we had done it all year long. We found a way to win or tie or whatever. You see Miracle included, going to Jacksonville for twice and doing that the way we beat them. We had all kind of little cardiac arrest type games that year. And I think that was one of those moments where it was familiar and we was going to find a way to get done. And we kind of did, whether it been dumping off to Jackie Harris or myself or whomever and Steve scrambling. It was just that play where right before the last play where he had two guys draped on, he breaks that tackle and hits me right there on the 10. Like stuff like that was just who we were. And so that was that feeling. So even when that last play get on, and you as a kid, I remember playing basketball in the driveway, and you do the whole 5, 4, and you want the ball at the end of your hand. It's kind of the same thing, It's like, all right, who's gonna make a play? Hope it's me. Hope I get opportunity to make a play. And then, sure enough, the covers dictate that it comes my direction, not necessarily to me, but we are the primary read side of the field because it was a zone. We were running a zone concept, and the other side was a man-to-man concept. And so I knew I was going to be in the progression. And then when the things opened up like they did, I was like, oh, I got it. And I saw that yellow paint in the end zone, and I thought I was in there. And Mike got his left hand over my left knee, so I couldn't extend. And they get the ring. We get to talk about it being second. So
Mike Jones. He made a good tackle.
He did. And he's one thing about it. I had a hard time after that, man. I was so stressed. I feel like I let a team down, let a city down. It was hard. We did a bit with ESPN, and hearing him talk through it and how humble he was about the experience, man, it really did help me. I wouldn't expect that, but it did. It was just like, okay, this man could have been like, I got the ring, just been gloating and everything else. He was like, no, man, I'm fortunate. I was tired. If I didn't get my left hand on your knee, you extend, you guys tie the game. He said, I don't, who knows at that point, because you guys had all the momentum. We had one play in the whole second half, and that was that big play to Isaac Bruce for the touchdown that put them back over the top at 23-16. And so, but him hearing talk about it, man, it was actually comforting in some ways.
How long did that interview that you heard with him, Mike, how long was that since the Super Bowl?
July, because we went up there and we actually scrimmaged them for training camp.
Okay.
We was up there for a week or two or something like that.
Following July. Okay.
Camp,
and that was that maybe when you kind of made peace with that?
I did.
Yeah.
I really did. And I had a great training camp that year too. And I was feeling good about where I was. And I was going to that season. I knew I had a lot of attention coming my way because of the Super Bowl. And I've starting to come into my own little bit. We start off that season in Buffalo. Nobody played well that day. I think that's the first game I've ever left there and didn't have a catch. I didn't have a catch for the first time in my career. And then the next week we played the Chiefs, had a 100-yard game, and I was feeling on top of the world. And then we had a bye week before we played the Steelers. And I had a incident or an accident, if you will, with a teammate colliding and tore my knee, and that forever changed my trajectory with that injury. It was one of those career-threatening injuries. Ended up being season-ending. Thank goodness I got to play a few more years after that. But that's just one of those things where you see the world is at your oyster, and all of a sudden it just comes crumbling down, and you just don't know what's next. Like, oh man, what happened? Because you feel like you could do anything, and now your future is uncertain. And so that was a tough time. That was a tough period of time as well. But navigated through that, came back and had a career year, and then got hurt again the following year. So it was just like
you had multiple serious injuries in that backstretch.
Yeah, three, and all to my lower extremities. My Achilles, my hamstring, and my knee.
You kind of need those as a wide receiver,
probably.
Just a little bit.
Especially if you can run a little bit. So
yeah.
That. But it's life lessons, and I've come to grips with them now. But during that time, and I talk about it now. But it was hard. It's already hard enough doing something for your life. You talked off air about this, but it's already hard enough doing something you love and not having all that stuff and going out on your own terms and transitioning and figuring life out, right? Let alone when you're kind of forced out and not on your own accord. Like it was, well, you're still a decent player. You can still play, but I don't want to pay you the money I can pay this young guy who's going to do X, Y, Z, meaning special teams and all the different things where I had been a starter my whole career. And so why pay me $1.1 million when you can pay him $250,000 to do way more than you're going to get from me, whether I'm the number 2, number 3 receiver, or 4th receiver, whatever it would have been out here. So I understand the business part of it too, but the frustrating piece is that you don't when you have injuries like that, you don't get to leave on your own terms. It's kind of dictated for you because people don't think you can do some of the same things you did before.
And you see that so often in the league. I think it's, I would love to hear, do you think nowadays in the NFL, do the majority of players have their own say on when they do want to leave, or is it injuries, or is it, other factors that dictate when their time's up? The league has changed a lot over the last 2 decades, but I feel like we're hearing a lot of stories of not just injuries, but also, concussions, and then also not getting along with, management, unhappy here, money. It just seems like there are a lot of factors that dictate when it is time to say goodbye.
Yeah, and I think guys are more conscious, for lack of a better way to say that, of their bodies and the longevity of it. So you see guys retiring a lot sooner than they had in the past.
And that's their choice. Technically, they're saying I'm going to say goodbye, whether they really want to or not.
Yeah. But the money is so much different than even from my era to the 20 years before us to now. It's so much different, and I know a lot of it's top heavy, but guys are when you're back in our era and before, you probably try to hang on longer to make that money a little bit longer because it's a short window of opportunity, where now they get the bag a lot sooner and it's a lot bigger. And there are some investment opportunities that are different. The knowledge of investments is different. So you don't feel that urgency to say, I got to play 12, 15 years to stack up these chips longer. It's do I still love what I do? Or how does my body still love what I do? Am I able to still hold up? Am I mentally able to still do this? And I think that's the difference, the shift in where guys are, the ones that are able to go there. Because it's still average about 3 years per, because we only talk about the guys we see and we know that play for a long time, but there's a lot of guys that come and go throughout. And that's the vast majority of players, right? Because that's what NFL stands for, not for long. But we tend to remember the ones that Derrick Henry, Saquon Barkley, Mahomes, the guys who are the face of the franchises and the face of the league, who have played 9, 10 plus years because of their ability. But for the most part, guys are in and out. But I feel like guys are more apt to retire sooner if they have that ability, because the knowledge of what happens after football now, from your head standpoint, your body standpoint, all the injuries that take place, guys are more comfortable, I should say. They're more comfortable with calling it a little bit earlier, because we've seen guys that prime in their career seemingly say, no, I'm going to go be a farmer. No, I'm gonna go do this. I'm good.
I'm gonna go have a family.
I'm gonna
take care of
family.
I'm gonna go take my kids to soccer practice.
At early 30s, where most of us trying to get to mid 30s or later. You know, the Brett Favres of the world, the Jerry Rices of the world, the Tom Brady's of the world. You know.
Yeah. So at least it's heading in a better direction than it was. It sounds like. You're listening to the Nashville Game Changers podcast with Dr. Kevin Dyson. Stay with us. We'll be right back after this. Before we transition to everything you're doing now in Nashville, I want to first ask you about what it was like playing with Steve McNair. It was recently what would have been his birthday, I think just a week or two ago. What was it like playing with him?
Man, I don't even know where to start. I think one thing I always appreciated with Steve is, for lack of better say this, he just was a warrior. I mean, you always felt like you had a chance with him in the game. He wasn't a big rah-rah, wasn't a screamer, didn't yell at players, but he definitely was a leader, and he led by example. I think we all would see him barely being able to move throughout the week and then be out there Sunday and giving it all, putting his body on the line. I remember when he came back, we played the Rams on Halloween that year, the Super Bowl year, and he just came back from back surgery. And in order to get in it, to score, he leaps from about the 3, 4, 5 yard line and takes a hit and lands directly on his back. And I'm right there. You know, I was blocking, I turned back, and I think my guy got in on the hit, so my bad. But I watch it and I'm looking like, is he gonna get up? Like he just got done.
Back surgery.
Got done with back surgery. But that right there, I just remember thinking like, man, he's getting it all right here. If he can do that, I can. You know, and I think that's most guys saw that, and Eddie was the same way. And I think because of them two and others on that team that we all looked up to, the Bruce Matthews of the world, the Marcus Robertson, the Blaine Bishop, some of those older veterans on that team that would give their all for their team and be in pain, and what fans didn't see that we saw every day, where they couldn't even practice sometimes because they were in so much pain. But I'd be dang if they went out there on Sunday giving everything they had and playing hard and playing well, playing at Pro Bowl levels. And so that's what we saw, especially I was only in my second year. I was a young cat, you know, I was 24 years old. And I'm sitting here just watching this and like, man, that's how you be professional, you know? So I tell them guys, man, I learned a lot just by watching y'all, Frank Wycheck from another, just how to prepare, how to be a professional athlete. And that was their leadership. And that's why you never can replace a veteran on a roster. I think you need guys like that, guys that have been there, done that. And that's what we had on the team. We had a good mix of veterans that had been there, had done that, and some young guys that were trying to figure some things out, who just want to do what's right for the team, who just wanted to win, didn't come in selfishly, say, give me the ball, didn't say, hey, I need to do this XYZ amount of times, or I'm out, or whatever. We just had guys that came in and tried to fit whatever the system is for that team, but find a role within the team. And we just had a good mix of that. And that was the beauty of that team, is even people like Eddie or Steve, as we were talking about, they didn't care who got the credit as long as we won, you know, but they're always going to do their part to be relevant and be part of the conversation, but they didn't care to be the topic of conversation. They just want to win football games.
Selfless leaders. Yeah. And you're right about that mix of veterans and young guns. We also had Jeff Fisher on the podcast, and he talked about, we tried to dive into what made that group so special. And that was one of the things he pointed to was you had the vets that had been there before showing the way, but they were selfless leaders. And then you had the young guns giving everything they could. We
didn't want to disappoint them.
You didn't want to disappoint them. You had a great group dynamic. And what's interesting about this new group of Tennessee Titans, present day, 2025, you have a mix of veterans and youth, but when you have a young quarterback like Cam Ward, it kind of puts him, like, let's be honest, the quarterback is always going to have to be a leader on the team because he's touching the ball offensively, every offensive snap. And so I think it's an interesting dynamic with Cam, because in the few times we've seen him in OTAs and minicamp, he's tried to be a leader. He's shown spurts of being a leader. Have you gotten a chance to watch any of his tape or anything, or hear kind of what are your first impressions of the new Titans quarterback?
I love it. I think he's doing and saying a lot of the right things. I think he's building and instilling that trust of those veterans, the Big Jeffs of the world, guys like that have been there, who have been through some lean times and have some success in the league, and there's guys there just looking for somebody to say, man, this is my team, I got you, and we can win with you. And whether it chips him down, I can remember being down and you see Steve walk down go talk to defense, man, my bad, I got you, give me the ball back. They're just hungry for that. And I think he's saying and doing a lot of the right things. He's coming in with that kind of that mentality. And I think if he can keep that, it's going to bode well for him. I think the ability to get you drafted number one. That's it. I mean, they watch on tape. Can he play? We can fine tune a couple of things, but can he lead grown men? Because he's not a kid, but there's guys they're in their late 20s, 30 years old who have been here, and you got to convince them to follow you in some respects. So you're gonna get some leeway, right? Because you're the quarterback, as you mentioned, but how much, and then how far do we go with you? I think the problem with it is the difference between, say, our team in 99-2000 was you were able to grow that and build that, whether it was through the draft and free agency, but primarily through the draft, where now we're in this phase of instant gratification, and then you see what Jaden Daniels has done or Stroud have done, and they as rookies take their teams to the playoffs and made runs and up for Rookie of the Year and everything like that. So everybody sees it like that's the normal, but that's not the normal. It's a maturation process. Yeah. You're going to have some ups and downs. I think even Caleb Williams this past year had some successes, but remember, he had some struggles in there too, but he progressively got better as the year went along, but they allowed those mistakes. Now, hopefully they reap the benefits in going into year 2, year 3, talk about the Bears. And so you hope for Kim in that first year is a steady growth of upward trend and him getting better weekly. If he has a year like Jaden Daniels, everybody would love that, rookie or veteran. Right. If he has that, then that's icing on the cake. But what you hope to see is similar to what you saw in Caleb Williams he's going to have one of those games, but man, when it's clicking, he's going to be special. And I think that's where Caleb Williams was. He had a few bad games, and then he had a stretch in there where he was pretty consistent, one of the better quarterbacks in the National Football League. And that's kind of where you want to see that progressively getting better week to week and learning from your mistakes.
Thanks so much for listening to the Nashville Game Changers podcast. That was part 1 of our interview with Dr. Kevin Dyson. Be sure to tune in next week for part 2 as he opens up about why he became a high school principal and what motivated him to start his own charter school. So be sure to tune in then. In the meantime, like and subscribe.